Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We're the Skeleton Crew again for the 51st time. Actually, far from that, because we've recorded videos aside from this series, but in this series for the 51st time.
Not counting the live ones.
So yes, not counting the live episodes, this is our 51st episode. We're kind of cresting the second half of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution 2, which is really cool. And a little frightening that we've managed to make it this far in a series that at the outset felt interminable and like we'd have content forever. We might have to figure out some other kind of video we can make. But I don't think there's any animal that could beckon us into the second half of this content at a low point quite like Liopleurodon, which is an animal that is designed so poorly, shockingly, appallingly poorly in this game, that when I saw it, I thought it must be appearing in the movie because only the character designers from Jurassic World Dominion could possibly make something that looks this bad.
I remember you having this chat with me.
Yep.
Yeah, we were all just like, oh my gosh, it looks so bad. Liopleurodon confirmed for Dominion.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yep.
It has the same design language to it.
It does. It's like, how could we take an animal that may have been beautiful and elegant in life as a real beautiful product of evolution and all of its wonderful intricacy and just fuck it up?
Beautiful.
Anyway, before I get to further ado, there's further ado coming, but I want to preempt that ado with some other ado, which is that we're YouTubers and we have to remind you that if you enjoy our videos, you should tell us that by liking our videos and leaving a comment with any questions you have about what we talked about or any other comments you've got. We do try to read literally every comment and respond to the ones that we can. And if you're a super fan of the Skeleton Crew, we ask that you consider subscribing to us. If you hit the little bell, YouTube will tell you every time we upload a video. And we are thinking of trying to upload more frequently starting pretty soon. So you are going to want to get notified every time we release something. We're all really excited about what 2024 is going to look like here. And so I really, really hope that all of you can come along for the ride with us. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and especially don't forget that we have a lot of merchandise that Amelia has designed on our Redbubble shop, and you should buy it. The mini skirt is enabled.
On certain
Enabling
things.
mini skirt.
On certain things. I think it should be enabled on everything. I don't care how bad it looks. It makes it funnier.
You want to go through and individually enable it in the right setting where it doesn't look like garbage for all like 80-something of my designs. Godspeed.
Anyway,
Chef.
on it. I will be very unfocused this video as I enable the mini skirt on every product. But anyway, now for the more ado. I'm Dr. James Napoli. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Science and North Carolina State University, and I picked the wrong month to quit sniffing glue.
Great. We're not going to acknowledge that. My name is Amelia Zilo. I'm a PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History, and I have never sniffed glue.
I'm Scott Johnston. I'm the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician, and because I do believe that our esteemed Dr. James Napoli forgot to mention it, subscribe to our Patreon.
Oh, I did forget that. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
It's a really
Patreon
great.
so I can afford glue.
my man cannot afford glue right now.
I cannot afford glue. Our glue reserves are critically low.
I can afford quite a lot of glue because I am a fossil preparator and we go through a lot of adhesives doing my work. And if you want to help fund this, you should.
The glue fumes. Audio, you broke him.
I'm sorry, Scott. It was right there, bud.
That was a really, really good joke. Subscribe to our Patreon, everybody. I'm done with this.
I'm Alex Rubenstall, and I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and I'm soon to be two great and trunkless legs of stone standing in the desert.
Neat. And I'm Dalton Meyer. I'm also a PhD candidate at Yale University. I don't know about Ewell University, but I think you might study Christmas there.
Did I say Yule?
It sounded like it to me.
All right, yeah, sure. I study Christmas. Who cares? About as real as dinosaurs.
I picked the wrong glue to stop sniffing months. And together,
we're the skeleton crew.
All right. Anyway, thank you all for bearing with us through what I think is the most unhinged introduction we've had in at least 2 episodes. Yeah.
Laugh it up.
Why don't you release the monster?
certainly.
Oh no! Just stay above water. We don't want to see this. Just that's bad enough.
Good angle.
There he comes.
Oh, that one seems like it has particularly ugly colors.
I don't think they're good colors on this guy. It isn't even one of those designs where it's like, oh, the design ain't great, but like it has some pretty colors. Like they're all bad.
This is an S tier for me because it's the only crocodilomorph in the game.
Baryonyx is in the game too.
If I can squint, I can sort of pretend maybe it's a Metriorhynchus. Kind of. It's got scoots. Well, actually, a lot of them don't Metrio.
It's inaccurate for marine crocs
don't have those, right?
Teleosaurs do, but
okay, Teleosaurs.
Metriorhynchus, which this looks more like, and I think almost never do. I can't speak to every single one, but yeah, generally they don't have osteoderms. They're more dolphin than teleosaurs, which are more
that's kind of cool.
That animation was pretty cool.
Weird noises.
I like the noises.
Are they like they're weird whale sounds almost?
They're
right?
kind of whaley, which I don't buy.
No,
I have a bad opinion.
What's that?
Go off.
I kind of like their silly beard.
That is a very bad opinion.
No, I didn't agree with that.
No,
okay.
Oh God, I think the neck beard is one of the most baffling design choices here.
This is Liopleurodon ferox, which translates to smooth-sided teeth, or ferocious smooth-sided teeth, if we put in the ferox there and play around with it to make it actually make sense as a sentence.
Yeah, you know what else is smooth?
My brain.
I think its brain probably too. This is really, really. I'm really struggling to even speak right now.
Is it your brain?
Yeah, it's that's what's smooth. It's my brain too.
How smooth did they get the teeth?
No, but do you know what I don't get? Liopleurodon doesn't have really smooth teeth. It has little, what is it?
It has fluted enamel, right?
It has fluted enamel. It's not smooth.
These don't look half bad for the teeth.
I'm interested by the front one. Are there weird hooked anterior teeth in Liopleurodon, or is that
That's a good question.
Let me see.
To the internet.
You mean what do you mean is weird about them? Like that they're procumbent?
These two, yeah.
They look a little procumbent.
Yeah, not that I can tell.
If anything, it does seem like they.
What do you call
I'm to give very, very, very faint praise here, it does seem like they kind of sort of get at least partially the fact that it seems like Liopleurodon had significantly larger teeth than most of the rest of the mouth, but smaller at the very end of the premax, right at the end of the snout there. And then they got a little bit gradually larger as they went back. There was a bit of a gap that seems to have a corresponding swell in the size of the teeth on the dentary there. And then a dramatic increase in tooth size as in the first couple teeth in the maxilla. It's almost like it has alternating fangs on the top and bottom jaw. It's really, really cool looking. There's some gnarly teeth.
So looking at Wikipedia, I actually think that there's a good skeleton that's been attributed to Liopleurodon ferox, and we'll talk about why it's attributed to it in a little bit. And it's probably the only thing scientifically we really have to talk about in this video. But it's a good skull at the University of, is it, Amelia, correct my German pronunciation, Tubingen?
It would be Tubingen. There's
Tubingen?
more of a,
Okay.
Tubingen. There's
Tubingen.
more of a, there you go.
So Sorry.
Well, there is so at the University of Tubingen, there's this very, very well preserved mounted skeleton attributed to Liopleurodon. I can't tell from the image that's available to me like how complete it is, but the premaxillary teeth are pointing forward. It looks to me like there's a lot of deformation to the skull, and so I think that's just crushing, that like it's forced them out. It's almost assuredly just an artifact.
Mm-hmm.
I do think generally, like the outline of the skull on this animal doesn't seem terribly wrong to me, though. Like, kind of echoing Scott here. Like, it does look like it's a fairly decent Liopleurodon skull. It's just all of the other stuff.
Well, a couple of the things that I'll say on it is that, bless you, is that I guess the line of the, like, I guess for lack of a better term, the gum line on the top and bottom jaws, it being very wavy like that. I don't know how to describe that. Yes. So it seems like on Liopleurodon, and I might at least go so far as to say with most pliosaurs that I've seen, their jaws are relatively, that occlusal region is relatively flat on both the top and bottom jaws, and a lot of that shape, that kind of sinusoidal look to it, would be attributed to the teeth. And I do not think that they went nearly far enough on the teeth on this guy. Now, this guy isn't Kronosaurus. He wishes he was, but
don't you mean Aectus?
No. I've had a lot of up close and personal time with Kronosaurus recently, and it seems like this guy also suffers from a similar condition of having really off big ass teeth. So
yeah, pliosaur teeth are no joke.
They're horrific. They get absolutely insanely huge.
One thing I want to note before we move on is I think the undulating occlusal margin is probably coming from a crocodilian model, because crocodilians notoriously have that kind of mouth shape where the bones, undulate to meet each other, and presumably this helps them grip things if the shape of the bone is kind of mutually contouring so stuff can fit between them.
Yeah, it's a food grip thing. At least in well, I mean, obviously in crocodiles, right? Because that occlusion's beyond just, like, it's the teeth.
Right.
Right? They're meshed together versus an alligator where it's more those teeth are fitting into these cool little spaces.
Right. But I just mean, like, the overall contour being like that probably helps. It's a natural break that even if the teeth aren't gripped into something yet, like,
sure,
you can only move so far. It's actually kind of interesting because it's also something that tyrannosaurs do a little bit. Most theropods have a flat ventral margin or alveolar margin of the maxilla and a flat alveolar margin of the dentary, so the jaws are pretty, like, flattened. Tyrannosaurs are one of a few groups where that changes. In tyrannosaurs, the maxilla becomes heavily convex to fit into a big concave dentary, which is something that before I was working on tyrannosaurs, I didn't realize was, like, actually distinguishing of their group. But it is. If you look at, like, Allosaurus, Coelophysis, the maxilla is much flatter. Anyway,
Dalton, can we get a top-down view of this guy's skull?
Yeah, hang on. Let me find one that's not reaching, like, too close to the surface. How's that for you?
Pretty good. I want to say it looks like the skull gets it's again a little bit of, like, almost a crocky sort of condition, that it has a more pronounced kind of, like, snout that like it very much has a narrowing region right in front of the eyes there, and it looks like on the actual Liopleurodon skulls, they're relatively like an acute triangle that are just a relatively constant angle right until the end of the snout.
Yeah, I think to my impression of this is that like from a distance and looking just at the outside edges of it, this does a pretty good job of conveying Liopleurodon to me and like conveying Pliosaur. But if you look closely, they gave it a crocodilian's like parietal table, like the flat top of the skull.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah.
They did.
Whereas Pliosaurus has like a more kind of traditional parietal for a reptile, that it's narrow on the top.
And it forms a true sagittal crest, right?
Yeah, and so I think it's in lateral view, maybe it doesn't make as much of a difference because I mean this would be flat-ish, but it does make a difference, and I think that's more of the. I mean, obviously this design is very heavily influenced by crocodilians.
Dalton, could you put it back in dorsal view for a sec? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look at that.
Like this flat right here.
Yeah, it's also narrower than
right.
the lateral. So like the lateral margins of the skull roof are medial to the lower to the lateral margins of like the what looks like, I can't tell if that's the mandible or just the lower jaw in this view, but like in Pliosaurs, I don't think it's exposed like that, right? Because the back of the skull is also very like blown long and wide.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, and I mean, we talked about temporal fenestration, I think, when we talked about Styxosaurus or Attenborosaurus, one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't look like it has a Euryapsid skull, right? Like, this is what Dalton's saying as well, like,
yeah,
it's got a croc skull table, it looks diapsid, you can almost see the indication of a lower temporal fenestra and an upper temporal fenestra.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, it's a little interesting because, right, like, so pliosaurs have these huge supratemporal, well, they have a big hole, right? I guess they don't really have a supratemporal. They have that one big opening.
It's the only one they have.
In dorsal view.
Right, it is the supratemporal fenestra. They don't have an infratemporal fenestra.
Yeah, we can flash up a skull here to show what we mean.
I imagine we've had a skull on screen most of this time.
And so, like an alligator, the actual supratemporal fenestrae on the top of the skull are quite small.
Yeah, small and circular.
And that's, like Dalton said, in part because of that skull table. But in marine crocs, like Metriorhynchus, the supratemporal fenestrae are also really big. And I'm kind of curious if that's maybe a marine thing. Amelia, do mosasaurs have huge supratemporal fenestra relative to, like, their relatives?
Normal lizard? No.
No?
I don't think so.
I also don't think so. I need to look at a mosasaur skull really quickly.
Take a look. Yeah, Google the skull of Metriorhynchus or something in dorsal view because it has these big, fat, circular supratemporal fenestra, and there's like actually a paper just came out about this today, but there's this whole debate on where Thalattosuchians go, and I'm never going to get to talk about them because we're probably not going to get one for this game. Maybe we will, but I'll do it very briefly because this looks like one a little bit. But there's an issue with Thalattosuchians, which is that there are two big hypotheses that they're either very early crocodile morphs, or that they're very, very more advanced, closer to the living group. And part of the line of evidence that they're more quote-unquote advanced is that they have these secondary palisate living crocs, but they also have these really primitive features in the back of their skull. And one of these is that they don't have, these marine crocodiles don't have the platform that looks like is in the model of Liopleurodon, but also living crocodilians. They don't have a flat skull table. It's much more like a pliosaur or something like that. And there's, how much of that is convergence or like that. But yeah, I'm curious. It's weird that happens in two different marine groups, at least to me.
Well, okay, I'm a little curious. When you say a flat skull table, you mean like the very back of the skull, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's behind the orbit.
And but it's not super flat on some pliosaurs. Some of them have.
No, it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be.
Oh, sorry. Okay, misheard what you were saying there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's flat crocodilians.
Yes.
Yeah. In the crown groups, at least.
Yeah, crown crocs. And you can almost see, like, looking at this, I could see, like, the vague, like, perhaps intention of, like, these little areas where I'm circling with the mouse almost look like depressions that might indicate where they've put the upper temporal fenestra. And then you can see that this width back here is not being made by the top of the skull, but is being made by, like, the cheek.
Right. Right. And it looks like it's a muscular cheek with like a big, it looks like a dinosaur or a croc, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And that's just not what these animals would have looked like.
So I thought this was better than it was.
No,
it's wrong.
yeah.
We've dissected it.
A lot of pliosaurs as well have a really pronounced sagittal crest. And it seems like Liopleurodon's wasn't like as pronounced as they can get, but it was still like there kind of would have been a peaking in the middle of the head.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, and if you're not familiar, like we'll have an image on screen, but if you're maybe listening to this as a podcast or something like that and you can't look at the screen right now, if you've ever seen like a wolf skull or a bear skull or something, I've got a bear skull, but hold on.
I'm trying.
Well,
yeah, I'm looking at the Chronosaurus right now because now I'm curious.
Amelia, are you all right? You seem a bit bewildered.
No, there's a cat, and I've also just like, it's funny that James got up because I have a hyena skull literally right there that would not have required anyone to get up. But
this is a bear skull.
Do you see the Chronosaurus is better, but
do you see this large peak here? My webcam can't do the white balance. Hold on.
Kind of blowing it out, yeah.
I know. Hold on. I need to move something dark in front.
I will. Yeah, just something we can keep in mind for the Chronosaurus. That'd be good to check. Sorry.
So there's a large muscle ridge that goes between the temporal fenestra here. What? Oh, hey,
mine's bigger.
Yeah, yours is bigger. Well, yeah. So I think
you call that a carnivoran skull?
Yes. Yeah. What is yours, Amelia? Is that a hyena?
It's a spotted hyena, yeah. Which is why it's horrible.
I would speculate that this is probably either a young male or a female brown bear because the size of the sagittal crest in a lot of mammals is sexually dimorphic. And I've got some research on bears actually that I'm going to submit tomorrow from the day after recording this. So
yeah.
Hopefully I'll get to talk about it soon. But in any case, I've looked at a lot of bear skulls and some male, like large grizzly bears, the sagittal crest is terrifying. It's a muscle anchoring point, right? These are the blocks of muscles that are generally classified in the adductor mandibulae series. They get different names in mammals, right? This is in mammals we call this temporalis, and it is distinguished from the masseter. In reptiles, they're all different sheets and heads of the adductor mandibulae muscle. And so the bigger the sagittal crest is and the larger the space that's excavated for it, generally the more muscle mass you have there, which is why Amelia's hyena skull has a massive one, right? They have a huge, huge bite force.
Horrific.
Right, and the whole skull is like being excavated to allow these muscles to attach.
Yeah. I believe if you have a pet dog, especially, you can usually feel it. And I've heard it, I think, called like a knowledge bump, if you're familiar with that term. But if you feel like the center of a dog's head, you'll sometimes be able to feel like a bump.
Depends on the breed, though, because like not all dogs have the same thing. Like I'm looking at the other skull that I won't grab because it's real is a fox skull, and it's basically smooth because like they're not built to bite as hard as other animals are.
It's generally, in mammals at least, it's generally like both allometric and ontogenetic. So like house cats as adults don't wind up with a pronounced one, but like big cats do generally.
Our close relatives do too, right? I think.
Yeah. If you're
Paranthropus.
Yeah, if you're one of our few viewers who are actually paranthropists, we see you. We see your comments. Then you can actually feel that on yourself back there.
The least comprehensible of our comments. That's what we assume.
Please eat more nuts and seeds and tubers.
Eat more roots and tubers.
This video made me want to crush rocks with my skull.
Root and tuber gang, rise up.
Root and tuber.
A lot of great apes have a sagittal crest. Gorillas do. I think chimpanzees do, and generally in them also it's sexually dimorphic. The males have a much larger one, both because they're larger and because they have proportionally much more development of these jaw muscles too.
In chimpanzee,
to an odd degree,
that it re-evolved to store the hate. That's where the hate goes.
Right. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Listen, if chimpanzees didn't have it, how else would they immediately bite through your fingers and your jaw if they attack you?
So
I'm sorry. No, I'm going to talk about chimpanzee attacks now. I listened to a podcast episode about them. Listen, do we want to talk about Liopleurodon that much?
No.
Yeah, it's fine. No, I was listening to an article. It wasn't about that woman who got attacked. I mean, the poor woman who got attacked in Connecticut
where that
a couple
happened?
of years ago. Very close to where you grew up, right?
Yeah. Stamford, Connecticut, maybe.
Oh my god. Yeah. But it was an attack that happened before that with a couple. And like, so chimpanzees, there's two things. One, most of these attacks are male chimpanzees because the males are incredibly aggressive, right? They tend to attack human men too. it seems to be something where they decide it's a territorial combat. And it's unclear to me if they really know we're not chimpanzees. So what happens is that chimpanzees are intelligent, and so their fighting style is not like most animals where they just kind of start wailing on each other without a plan. They're like, I have to immediately neutralize the opponent here. The things it can use to hurt me are its jaws and its hands. So that what they do is they immediately bite through the human male's jaw, and then will individually bite off and swallow their fingers. And then they bite off your testicles and penis. After that, they will either decide to kill you or just stop.
Please kill me.
I can't eat right or
Damn.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, they're so strong and their jaws are so powerfully developed. They can, like, they will bite through your fingers like it's a carrot. They will just like like that, and then it's all.
Well, can a person bite through fingers like a carrot?
I mean,
not.
Isn't it psychological and not physiological?
I've heard that before. I don't. Scott's shaking his head as if he's tried this. I've heard this before, that it would take about as much strength to bite through a finger as it would a carrot.
It doesn't. Bones are pretty strong.
If you get it through the knuckle.
The only reason I know this is because there was.
You bit someone's finger?
When
I bit off multiple people's fingers, it was much harder than biting through a carrot.
Absolutely. There's a YouTube video from the channel I Did a Thing, which is that crazy Australian dude who just does.
Fingers?
No, Jesus. Who just does these bat inventions in his garage while refusing to wear shoes the entire time, and he made an insane robot to test the bite force of things, and tried to see if it would take the same amount of pressure to bite through a carrot as it would a human hand analog, which I believe was this horrifying chicken meat thing that had thigh bones and stuff in it, that he was like, yeah, they're obviously not 100% exactly the same, but even with chicken bones, it was way more force.
I mean, if you're biting clean through the joint, like maybe.
Unless you have weak bones due to osteoporosis or freakishly strong teeth, it's quite hard to bite through a finger. Okay.
Yeah.
Urban legend. But I had heard that too, Amelia.
I heard that when I was in grade school. Yeah.
No, I've heard it all the time.
It's just a psychological thing. Like, we can't do it because we know it's bad, but like, you could bite. Okay, but that's good
to know.
If you
don't know it's bad?
Not true.
You know?
But you know who can bite through your finger?
Has to do it with like the side. He does it with his molars, right?
Yeah, that's even worse.
Chews it off.
Yeah.
You know who can bite through a finger?
This guy.
A chimpanzee?
Well, no, a chimpanzee. I'm not done. So,
but it was a woman who got attacked in Stanford, right?
It was. This is one of the. It was one of the rare cases where that was where it was a woman. They often go after men. Apparently, from what I've heard, in most zoos, the chimpanzees are considered so dangerous that in the event of a large natural disaster that threatens their enclosure, the zookeepers are specifically instructed to hunt them down and kill them before they get into the community.
Is every single zoo staffed by Muldoon in Jurassic Park? They should all be destroyed.
I've heard a lot of the large zoos, like, they have a stash of like semi-automatic rifles that are like, if we need to kill the chimpanzees, like, go here and just start firing into their enclosure. Yeah, no, they're dangerous. Like, it's an underrated idea for, like, not like a Planet of the Apes style media thing, but just a movie where there's like some hurricane that like obliterates part of their enclosure and they can get out and they're just in a community. I don't like chimpanzees. I don't really like primates very much, but chimpanzees in particular give me no reason to like them. I do appreciate, though, that our closest living relatives had the faith to diverge into the two end members of the human condition, where we have the chimpanzees, where it's like, if a rival gets anywhere near me, I'm going to gnaw through his face, his hands, and his genitals immediately before I ask any questions. And bonobos, where they're just like, we had an argument, we should have sex about it. and it works. I think that we could learn something from the bonobos, and I think that international disputes should be handled closer to that than to the chimpanzee manner of doing it.
UN, United Nutting.
I guess a final note on the skull here, before we move on to the neck beard, is that with that sagittal crest and that kind of heightening of the back of the skull, it kind of would have, in profile, given this guy a bit of a pronounced forehead that would have ended like right around where the eyes are, It's kind of a little doofy when you see it done properly, but that's how it would have looked. And the fact that this guy has that, as we said, that kind of flat back of the skull is very non-Pliosaur-like and very much as well non-Liopleurodon-like.
There is one more point I would like to bring up about the skull. It's the only piece of actual science I plan on mentioning today.
That's about Pliosaurus.
It's about Pliosaurus. It's not about chimpanzee attacks.
The only bit of science you plan on mentioning that's about Pliosaurus. Mentioned a lot about chimps.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. This is no longer about chimpanzee attacks, but they're always on my mind.
As they should be on yours.
Yes.
Could happen anytime.
It could.
Pliosaurs declined in the early Cretaceous due to a unrecognized early radiation of chimpanzees.
So, Pliosaur skulls exhibit a general trend that's repeated in different areas of vertebrate evolution called telescoping of the skull. And I think that telescoping is a really interesting phenomenon. It generally, I don't know what the formal definition is exactly, but it generally involves this huge extension of the region of the skull that's like the snout. And it often involves reduction of the bones in the middle of the skull. So you get like a brain case adductor chamber region, and then a short kind of orbital region, and then a long snout. And it can be, the degree of telescoping can be diagnosed by what bones the premaxilla is contacting. So generally, the premaxilla of reptiles is going to contact the maxilla on the lateral or side of the face, the lateral side or the side of the face, and the nasals up on the top surface of the skull. If you telescope the skull enough that you have the premaxilla start extending backwards, it can get past the nasals and start articulating directly with the front. And Amelia, some mosasaurs do that, right?
They all do.
They all do. Okay.
Yeah. The nasals are, but then their situation is the nasals are lost / they become super thin little struts that kind of so the frontal and the premax together make a bar, and then under that bar sometimes, maybe, possibly, there are nasals, but basically you can only see them in CT scans. Okay. Right. So I remembered the nasals were really reduced. I didn't realize it was to that degree. That's to the point where it's been an argument about whether they have them at all or not. And basically it's only in CT scans can you really be sure what splint you're looking at is a nasal.
And Amelia, don't they often also, because of the nature of them, kind of fall out if something's disarticulated or decays enough that it's just Yeah.
So that's what I think happened with Yorgi, for example, is it has a little facet there, and that facet continues along the back of the premax and the front of the frontal. There's a little facet there, but there's no nasals. Okay. And so that's 1 degree of telescoping. Amelia, do any mosasaurs have telescoping to the degree that the premaxilla is really invading the frontals, or are they kind of contacting along a bar? It goes kind of up and over. So the frontal is kind of got this weird little thing that goes under, and then the premax has this interdigitate thing that kind of goes up and over quite a bit. Okay. So I know in some whales, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were done. Anterior to the orbits. It never goes up, it never goes above or beyond the orbits. Okay. So I think in some whales, it does actually extend above the orbits, it extends well into the frontals. But pliosaurs, to my knowledge, have the highest degree of telescoping of any tetrapod because the premaxilla directly contacts the parietal. Which, if you are a vertebrate anatomist, is weird. Right. It goes right through the whole skull and hits the parietal.
Why? Dumb question.
Yeah.
Does it do that in any birds? Because the premax in birds can be pretty big, right?
I don't believe it does because I think it's excluded by the huge brain case, with the frontal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible there's one bird species where it does. I can't speak for all of them. But to my knowledge, yeah. See, this seems like cheating, though, because I'm looking at a diagram right now. It's touching the parietal, but the parietal is scooched forward above the eyes. And the frontals are shoved down along the side. That's cheating. I mean, it disturbs me, though. No, it's gross. I'm not saying that this is okay, but, it's not what I thought was happening. Yeah. Well, I mean, right. This is part of the telescoping thing, though, is I think you're just losing the middle part of the skull, except for the fact that you need to still have eyes. like the entire skull is becoming
hills.
dominated by these other things.
Looks like what's happened actually is the back part has scooched the other things forward because the postorbital is scooched up too.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Well, this says that they have a postorbital frontal and a postorbital, but if you that doesn't sound like something you should be able to do, but whatever.
Doesn't sounds illegal.
It is illegal.
And I know this is not the same thing, but just in case to buffer ourselves against possible actuallys, do any Lambeosaurians have premaxilla that touch their parietals?
Oh.
Because they're weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like that's like
that's different.
a different weird.
It's still not okay.
No, it's very upsetting.
I don't believe they contact the parietals. I think that
I'm looking at
the
a
nasals might. The nasals might wrap backwards and sometimes touch the parietal. But I think the premax is excluded from that.
Hold on, sorry. The nasals might touch. They touch the postorbital. I don't see a parietal in this image. But it looks like there's a non-zero chance they might touch the squamosals. I will share the image in the chat. But
okay, thank you. I was looking for it.
That does raise a question in my mind, which is just that like it's obviously not happening for the same reason. And Lambeosaurians are kind of rearranging their face in their own horrible ways. Sure. That wouldn't even if it did, like even if the premaxilla did kind of extend back and touch the parietal, would we consider that telescoping?
No, I don't believe so. Like I think it's a distinct development.
Only the front of in front of the eyes.
I think so.
So,
I think it's a unique. I think it's a developmental trend of its own.
Ooh, hold on.
I believe.
I just thought of a thought, which are Pteranodon skulls. Because I think most of the Pteranodon rostrum is premax, right?
I would guess
Phytosaurs?
So. Phytosaurs, maybe. Yeah, that's another example of telescoping to my knowledge.
And marine crocs, like the Latasuchians, have enormous the premaxilla is like the big tooth-bearing element. Diagram.
I wish anyone would label these diagrams.
I need someone to tell me which bones are which. Yeah, that premaxilla is going up, and it looks like it's contacting the frontal, but not the parietal, which is like back that way. But it's getting to like the level of the orbit, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
Those are cool. Yeah, sorry.
It's like the one thing I knew about Pliosaurus skulls, because otherwise I must confess I have a profound disinterest in pliosaurs. They've always looked to me like they were drawn by children.
Oh, come on.
Jeez.
I love pliosaurs. I think that they're fascinating.
I was going to work on pliosaurs initially, and literally the reason I didn't was because I didn't want to move to Europe.
That's a good reason.
The only thing I've talked about quite a bit how I didn't grow up watching documentaries or any engaging with paleo media of any kind. The only thing I remember is the walking with Liopleurodon, and that was my favorite animal for a very, very long time, specifically just because of that scene and because it looked so cool in that show. And so it came time to do paleo research. I was like, oh, Liopleurodon sounds cool. And then I dug into the literature. It's like, oh, this is a disaster and there's no fossils here and I don't want to move. So never mind.
Well, that's a good segue, though. Discussing.
I want to say one very, very, very final thing about the skull.
Please.
It's half the size it should be.
In this animal, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's most of their body is a head.
That, even if you were to, and I don't mean that necessarily in absolute size, I mean if you were to have an accurate an accurate Liopleurodon next to this one and scale them up so they're the same length, the head is proportionally double the size of this. It's actually insane how much these things are just swimming heads.
I agree with you. I have one question.
Yeah.
Which is just with regards to the one in Tubingen. That one looks like it has a pretty small head relative to its body. I don't know the veracity of the entire mount, I don't know where it all comes from and what's all going on with that.
I wouldn't
compared to diagrams.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is, if it's a composite. Actually, I think I remember. I won't say that, but I was going to say I think that I did read a little bit that it might be a composite, but I know that from personal experience, I know that making the trunk way too large is a very common mistake with reconstructing pliosaurs. Mm-hmm. By personal experience, I mean that happens with our Kronosaurus.
Right. But I think it's worth saying, why would it be that mount in Tubingen could be a composite? What is the situation? What is the disaster with pliosaurs that Amelia talked about? I don't think it's worth us getting into a nitty-gritty discussion of the taxonomy of these animals, but paleo fans may know that there's a trend that happened, especially early on in paleontology, where people would name teeth because it was the first time they ever saw this kind of unique tooth, and so you name it. And then it turns out that kind of tooth is diagnostic to a larger group of animals, and it causes a lot of confusion with what should be called a particular name. An example in dinosaurs is Troodon, right? So Troodon was named in the 1800s. It was named just for a tooth that was completely unique from anything that had ever been seen before. And so it was given the name Troodon formosus. It turns out that Troodon, or troodontid dinosaurs, frequently have teeth like that. And so the morphology of the tooth actually doesn't allow diagnosing the species. We call these just tooth taxa in our field, and they're often looked at with a little bit of suspicion because it's hard to actually know what body the animal goes to. Mm-hmm. Another one with small bird-like dinosaurs actually is this animal, Ricardosthesia, which is named after the paleoherpetologist Richard Estes.
I thought you were going to say...
Which does have mandibles.
Like, Ricardosthesia sounds just like a person's name. Mm-hmm. It was like, this is my good friend, Ricardo Esthesia.
Right, named after
Richard Estes.
Ricardo Esthesia.
Yes. So there are two denities of Ricardosthesia, and there's a lot of teeth that do appear different from every other dromaeosaur in the late Cretaceous of North America we have teeth from, and yet we can't find any more body fossils that go to this animal. Mm-hmm. And there seem to be multiple species. There's suggestions that it's a Microraptorine, even though I don't think that that's astoundingly well supported. In any case,
I heard it was a pterosaur.
Ricardosthesia?
Yeah.
Might as well be.
Could be anything. I didn't know there was any bone associated with it. I thought it was just teeth.
Yeah, no, there's denities, and those are pretty clearly dromaeosaur denities, but I think some of the teeth may also pertain to pterosaurs with teeth. I mean, anything is possible.
We find them in Montana. Yeah. I found them, and I ask what they are, and they're like, Ricardosthesia, ? I'm like, okay.
Right. If you find a tooth, just call it Ricardosthesia. That's fine. Liopleurodon began its life and continues to live its life as a tooth taxa. So these smooth teeth that give it the name Liopleurodon are found in, I guess, the Jurassic coast of Britain. I think that's where the initial fossils were found. They're common in Europe. They were initially recognized as distinct. I think now we understand that this is more generally like what pliosaur teeth tend to look like. A lot of specimens have been attributed to Liopleurodon ferox, and some have been erected as other species of Liopleurodon. Given that the type specimen is a tooth, it's hard to make those decisions. There was a proposal in 2022 that what we need to do is designate a neotype for the taxon to preserve the name, because you can do that when the type specimen is so bad that it could not possibly diagnose the taxon. That makes it what you call a nomen dubium, which was one of the floated original names for our channel. I'm very happy that Skeleton Crew won, even though it was literally nobody's first choice. And I went into the poll I sent out recently just to confirm that, and this was literally no one's first choice, which I find very funny, because it is far and away the best name.
Was it not my first choice?
I don't think so.
What?
Yeah, no.
Scott was so dyslexic he voted accidentally.
No, Scott, I'll tell you something bad. You know what your first choice was? The word skullduggery.
Oh, that's pretty embarrassing.
Oh, I should be kicked off the channel for that.
I don't know if that's cute.
Yes.
Could you resend that poll just as a memory jogger later? Because I would like to look at that again. I don't remember what all our options were.
Oh, I mean, I could tell you we had sensu stricto or sensu stricto, because the idea was that we'd be more rigorous than other paleo channels.
I liked that one.
That one was fun. We had nomen dubium, we had skullduggery, skeleton crew, and there was one other option.
Was it wastebasket taxa?
It was wastebasket taxa.
That's also a good one.
That's one I liked. I think that was my favorite.
Now, obviously, skeleton crew was the right one.
Obviously,
far and away. But anyway, nomen dubia or nomina dubia are the Latin word that just means a dubious name, right? It's exactly what it sounds like. And it's just when the name is based on material that is inadequate to diagnose it, in general terms. In that case, you don't have to get rid of the name. You can designate a neotype. Where you say, and that happens in the case where you say, the name has been used for all of this time with the assumption that this is what the animal was. You can't just do it for any name that you want. Right? You can't just go back and say, well, I'm going to preserve that because I'm designating this the neotype. But in a case like Liopleurodon, there are a number of good skulls and skeletons that have been discovered that have all been considered Liopleurodon ferox. And so there's an understanding of what we interpret the name to go to. And so you can petition the ICZN to say, these are the things that we've been calling Liopleurodon. The type is not suitable, but all of these things generally seem to match each other. And so we're going to start moving forward with the continued understanding that this is the animal that we're looking at. Right. Mm-hmm. An example of this that happened recently, only a couple of days ago, I think, was Allosaurus.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the type specimen of Allosaurus is a really, really poorly preserved caudal vertebra that is in the collections at Yale.
Yep.
Nowhere near sufficient to diagnose the animal. What happened later is that another specimen that's now in the Smithsonian was found. And that has been treated, and that's a very, very good, almost complete skeleton. That has been treated as the defining specimen of Allosaurus for decades. And so the petition basically said, the holotype isn't good. We have been proceeding under the operation that this is what Allosaurus is. So now we're making a petition to officially anchor the name to this specimen that we've been using as our reference the whole time. That's just to explain to our audience why you can't just save every name. Like, you can't just designate neotypes for all of them. If there's not really agreement over what the kind of animal is, you can't really do it. But in cases like that, that is the less confusing thing, and that's what eases work on the animals the most. And so that's what can often happen. So hopefully that'll happen with Liopleurodon, and we'll be able to start actually revising what is Liopleurodon, how many species there may be, because a couple have been proposed, all of that kind of jazz. Right now, we don't really.
And all that jazz.
Can I make a brief digression that I think could be interesting and relevant?
Please.
And we might never really talk about it again. Which is that this, talking about like tooth taxa, which are notoriously problematic, has made me think of Taxa and Ichnotaxa, which are something the audience might not be familiar with, but are interesting, which is that you will sometimes see, for example, like a dinosaur footprint given a name. One that comes to mind is like Eubrontes or Growlitor, yeah, a great name. And there are also, and so those are what we call Ichnotaxa, because we're giving a name to an ichthyofossil or a trace fossil. We do the same thing with eggshells sometimes, where we'll give them an Taxa name, like Macroeulithus, I think, is one of them, that describes a certain. Or sorry, James, did I say it incorrectly?
I don't know if Macroeulithus is the name. It's Macroelongatoeulithus, which is even harder to say.
It's such a bad name. It's negative mouthfeel.
Often bad names. But these names are given to these kinds of fossils that we're like, we know that we can almost never actually attribute them to a given species of animal. Right? Like we'll probably, unless magically there's a Growlitor footprint with a diagnosable foot in it that has the bones, we won't be able to refer Growlitor to a given specific taxon. And even if that were the case, we wouldn't be able to ascribe every single footprint that's been called Growlither to that magical foot that's been preserved, because we don't know that it was the same animal making all of these similar tracks. But it is still sometimes useful to give these kinds of things names, because you can then put them in comparative frameworks and everyone kind of at least gets a sense of what you're talking about.
Right.
Now, this is not really, to my reading of the room in terms of the literature, done with Tooth Taxa. It kind of Tooth Taxa aren't treated like Ichnotaxa in the same way as this has a name, but we're trying more to put the name to a specific animal. And there's a part of me that's maybe it would be useful to think of Tooth Taxa as a kind of Ichnotaxa, but then the other part of me is more so that I think we shouldn't, and that, in general, Tooth Taxa should be avoided, just because there is a much stronger possibility than with Ichnotaxa and Eutaxa to actually find one of these teeth in something that you can tell what it is.
But also, it depends very much on the kind of animal you're dealing with, reptiles versus mammals. A mammal tooth is so much more diagnostic and helpful than a reptile tooth is generally. So it makes sense that a lot of fossil mammals are based on teeth.
Yeah.
Right. Many fossil mammals, sometimes the teeth are all that is known of the entire animal's existence. Not even just a holotype, it's the only one you ever find.
Everybody's favorite giant ape, Gigantopithecus, which is almost entirely teeth, right?
It's a dentary. There's a bit more.
There's a dentary? Oh.
Yeah, there's a bone to it, unless the cast is completely made up, and I was lied.
There's some bone, but
I thought there was a tiny, whatever. Either way, it's wrong.
Well, as this is just a jumping off point for a brief funny story. Apparently at some meeting, it may have been a meeting of SVP. The famed paleontologist Forrest Jenkins, who used to be a professor at Harvard before he passed away, was talking about the fossil record of Mesozoic mammals. And this is prior to discoveries in the Gobi Desert and China that really expanded that record. And he basically said, it was some joke that ended with the punchline, the entire fossil record of Mesozoic mammals could fit in one shoebox. Which is true. It was all teeth with a couple of jaw fragments. That situation is now thankfully changed. Now it's two shoeboxes.
So just going to ape a joke format, it is said that mammal paleontologists invented paleontology and reptile paleontologists introduced bones to them.
I like that.
But no, yes, it's an excellent point, Amelia, that mammal teeth, especially molars, are diagnostic and really important. But reptile teeth, unless it's something really weird, pretty much no. It's useful to know, this is a tooth that's probably from a troodontid or a dromaeosaur or a pliosaur. But I think personally, and I made the connection to Ichnotaxa and Eutaxa, but I don't think that we should kind of treat teeth in the same framework just because they are possibly attributable to animals.
Yeah.
Right. And it happens a lot. One example of this recently was Sornitholestes. So Sornitholestes was known from fairly scrappy holotype remains. But there were also teeth that appeared to be dromaeosaurs from the Dinosaur Park Formation that were called Zapsalis. Discovery of a more complete Sornitholestes skull allowed recognition of Zapsalis as just being the premaxillary teeth of Sornitholestes. Specifically, I think specifically the third premaxillary tooth, which is kind of distinctive in that animal.
Yes, and also possibly for preening.
Possibly for preening, right. So anyway, it's just I guess that's just further to the point. We do occasionally find these body fossils that allow us to sort out the tooth taxa. Although I would argue that Ricardostachia has almost become kind of like the equivalent of an Ichnotaxon.
It has, yeah, I feel like.
Well, and that's why I think if we ever figure out what that really is, it's going to actually cause some problems because it's generally been such a catch-all that that's just a thing you can find, or Ricardostachia teeth.
It's basically if we find a tooth that's small, long, and skinny, Ricardostachia. That's the extent of classification that it gets for us when we write on the little specimen tags. Right.
No, and that's, I'm sure thousands upon thousands of teeth in museum collections are labeled like that. So that's a nightmare waiting to happen. Yeah. But anyway, I think 25 minutes ago we said we were going to talk about the neckbeard, and we haven't yet. So I'm just going to open, and I'm going to say I don't like it.
I don't mind it.
I don't like it. I think it's awful.
I like it. I don't know why.
I think it's kind of funny.
It's a character. Like, it gives it something, you know? Like, I don't care if it's not realistic. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I don't care about that. I think it's ugly.
Yeah, the awful crest on Deinonychus. It gives it character.
That's different, because that looks bad.
So does this.
Not. No, it doesn't. How? It's tiny. It's like...
Hey,
you can barely see it in the game.
So I know we've been trying to get a couple sponsors recently. Hey, Harry's. Dollar Shave Club. Sponsor us so we can shave the Liopleurodon.
That's a good idea.
Oh my God.
That would actually be a really funny sponsorship. That'd be really funny.
I will say that it fit. Let me put it this way. It fits with the vibe of the model in the game right here. Mm-hmm. But I hate the model of the game right here. Basically, if this was on... If they gave the Kronosaurus in this game a spiky, awful neckbeard, it would drop an entire letter grade for me.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I completely forgot to ask this earlier. Is Liopleurodon like British or German?
I think it's been found both places.
It's been found in both places and Mexico, if you believe that that's Liopleurodon.
I don't think that's the same thing.
I wonder if that's the Seaway one, which is what I was spamming our chat with earlier in case we wanted to talk about at any point.
That's Macrocephalosaurus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like But I wonder if, like, because there's no other if there are no other pliosaurs known from that time from Mexico, maybe it was just Jurassic pliosaur Liopleurodon ?
Or Pliosaurus. It was one of the two. It was kind of a 50-50 shot of what are we naming this? Is it Liopleurodon? Is it Pliosaurus? Is it both?
Is it just teeth?
No, there's some actual material to it. It's from Oaxaca. Let's see. It's partial front end of the snout. And some other bits. It's definitely, it's not good. They say that it's not good enough for species level identification. So it's, let me actually look at the fossil.
Well, Scott looks at the fossil. I would just say we don't have to talk about it much, but it's really cool in Walking with Dinosaurs. I like it in that one a lot.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's so cool.
I remember one of life's first great disappointments, and when I thought for the first time, it's like, maybe we can't trust the scientists, is when people were like, it's actually not 80 feet long. And I'm like, I was probably like 10, but like, I was prepared. I'm like, I do this.
No,
I've decided.
It's more than 10 feet long.
Or were you saying you were 10 years old?
I was 10 years old.
Okay.
I have a story about that that's similar and relates to the 10 feet long thing, which is that I learned about the lie of Liopleurodon
Liopleurodon.
in third grade, because I remember distinctly in third grade, like the school library had like a book of facts for kids. I don't remember exactly what it was. It had like all kinds of different subjects in it, and there were little illustrations, and there was like a section on like dinosaurs and prehistoric animals. And I think this was written maybe even before Walking with Dinosaurs, but it just brought mention to Liopleurodon, and it had a misprint, I'm pretty sure. And it was like, Liopleurodon was a marine predator that was 4 feet long. And I was like, what do you mean? And I think it may have meant to say 4 meters. But it was just like, this is 4 feet long.
That's
like
so
4 meters
sad.
is still undersized, but I think it's not tremendously so.
I can see Lucille Bluth dressed as Mary Anning. How long is a pliosaur? 4 feet? Okay.
So looking through the Mexican material, it seems like it's not much and it's a bit beat up. So I can see why they didn't get it down to a species level. But like what they have isn't awful. It's just it's not that much. They have like half of one flipper that they don't, and like some scattered bones of another, bits of vertebrae, and then that end of a snout that does have some nice looking teeth in it.
Don't look a gift pliosaur in the mouth.
Yeah. How did we get off the neckbeard so quickly, though?
I don't think anyone really wants to discuss it.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
it's just, we don't have anything scientific to say about it. It's just
some lizards have scales on the underside of their chins. I don't know.
It looks so gross. I mean, it just like put this animal in a fedora and have it say "Milady" at the Tylosaurus.
Oh, this is.
Please.
I mean, this is a true Brexit geezer right here.
Oh yeah.
It evokes. It serves geezer.
You know what else I hate are the flippers.
Oh,
I don't like the claws at the end.
Let's discuss.
Wretched.
Yeah.
They're also badly shaped.
You know what they did though? The hind flipper is larger than the fore flipper.
They did do the thing. I can't believe the like some things they get right on some of these designs.
Well, so I have a question. Do we think they're trying to like evoke kind of like seals with this?
Maybe.
Right? Because like I'm trying to think like aquatic animals where like the fingies are exposed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like some seals. Do sea turtles do that at all?
No.
Manatees have nails.
Okay. Yeah, manatees have nails. I mean, presumably transitionally, every group went through a phase like this, right?
Oh, sure.
Awkward teenage phase.
But in the act of doing this...
It's not an evolutionary phase, Mom.
But so in the act of doing this, in the act of like, ooh, we're going to evoke another marine creature, potentially, what they have done is something where we probably, a place where there was a lot of wiggle room to not mess up how many fingers and toes a pliosaur has.
Yes.
They have gone like, hold on, we're going to make a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, it's got like croc leg scoot. I didn't even notice like it has like croc leg scales.
There are 6 claws on the fore flippers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 claws on the hind flippers, which would indicate 6 fingers and 7 toes. The scalation patterns on them are ugly as sin.
You heard it here, folks. Liopleurodon is an early tetrapod.
I wonder if, at least for the fore flippers, like if they misread a skeletal, where like sometimes pliosaurs have like a little like in mosasaurs it's called a pisiform. I don't know. They have a little bonus bone that looks like a 6th digit, but it's actually not. It's one of the carpals that kind of hangs out. And I wonder if that could at least be accounting for the 6 digits, but it does not explain 7.
I want to propose something, and anyone watching this video in the future, please tell me if this is correct, if you have insider information. But the more I look at this, I have convinced myself that this was, at some point in its design philosophy, supposed to be a marine crocodile. This is a Steniosaurus that has been mushed and molded into... The tail is so long, it's got 2 rows of dorsal osteoderms on its back. It's got a skull table, which still wouldn't be right for a teleosaur, but like... This,
but understandable mistake if you're building a crop.
But like maybe they were like, no, well, we need a pliosaur. We don't have a pliosaur in the base game, so turn it into Liopleurodon. It doesn't explain the fingers. It doesn't explain the big paddle. I don't know. That's what I've said.
I am still convinced this was going to be in the movie at some point, because I've heard tell that the Malta sequence of Jurassic World Dominion did originally have a phase where there are aquatic animals in the water that are attacking people on boats, and I think pose a difficulty when they're trying to leave. I read the leaked plot for Jurassic World Dominion before the movie came out, which had many of the beats correct. Not all of them, but many. And it did include this and specifically mentioned a plesiosaur. I don't remember if it mentioned a pliosaur, but I don't think it did. The plesiosaur, and this is why I thought this, when they debuted this game, there were 2 really ugly marine creatures, right? Mm-hmm. There's the pliosaur, there's this one, and there's the Elasmosaurus, which looks like a dragon of some sort. And I was convinced these... Well, I mean, it's got character, but again, like, given that Frontier's designs for animals that are not in the movies have generally been fairly scientifically informed, to very scientifically informed, I was surprised at the decisions to make those so stylized if they were not in the movies.
Yeah.
I remain surprised. I was wrong. But that's why I thought that.
That's the greatest surprise.
That I was wrong. Thanks.
I wonder if you asked Steve if he would know.
I don't think he could tell us. But yeah.
He's probably under
I'm sure he
NDA.
knows.
Yeah, maybe he's NDA'd up.
Should we say?
That's right, good.
Well, there's more to talk about. Should we say why we know it didn't have claws on its flippers?
Because it doesn't have claw bones. Next.
There we go. Yep, it doesn't have claw bones, and we also have like other plesiosaurs with preserved soft tissue around the flippers, which definitely would show any claws, and they didn't have them. And they did have 5 digits per flipper, unlike ichthyosaurs, which go nutso butso, but we can talk about that in an ichthyosaur video if we're so inclined.
I have very little to say about the rest of the design, so I'd be okay with ranking it now. I guess we could note the osteoderms are unlikely and not known.
There's two things that we want to talk about before we go. One, we have some pretty interesting fossils that show some cool insights into what it ate and how it might have lived. And two, we haven't done phylogeny.
Oh, we should probably do that, huh?
We talked about pliosaurs a lot. What am they?
They're actually lizards. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. So we've discussed. Oh, this is the first like genuine pliosaur, right?
Yeah, this is the first.
We did Edinburghosaurus.
Yeah, but this is the first like stereotypical pliosaur.
Sure.
But yes.
So we have Sauropterygians, and we've talked about Sauropterygians on the channel before. Early things in the Triassic are weird, but the main Mesozoic Sauropterygians, these marine reptiles, are the plesiosaurs after the extinction at the end of the Triassic. So you go from things like nothosaurs, these kind of lizardy guys, long neck, long tail, to plesiosaurs. And the early members of Plesiosauria generally have long necks. James, how you doing there, bud?
I saw something funny on Twitter. Keep going.
That's fine. Share it later. I'm excited. Yes. So traditionally, plesiosaurs have been kind of split between what are two morphotypes. Short neck, long head. These are your Liopleurodon and Chronosaurus, and long neck, short head. And these are plesiosaurs, Elasmosaurus, Styxosaurus. Like I alluded to before, the primitive condition for both of these general groups is long neck, short head, but pliosaurs, in that Pliosauridae, the family, they evolved big, long skulls and short little necks, relative. And of course, there are weird re-evolutions of like long-necked pliosaurs and short-necked plesiosaurs and all that. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the real, true blue pliosaurs. So Liopleurodon is, I think, late Middle Jurassic and early Late Jurassic. And it's part of this group within Pliosauridae that are thalassophone. Hold on, I got to.
Yeah, no, it's. I looked this up earlier because the name struck me. It's Thalassophonia, which translates to ocean murderers,
which is pretty cool.
It's such a good name.
But yeah, so it's part of this, and it's not. So there's another animal in this game, Chronosaurus, and that's part of a more advanced group. And I don't have it up on the screen right now.
Is that because it went to Harvard?
Brachiochenians.
That's how you say that?
Brachiochenians. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah. But yeah, so like Liopleurodon is with a few other, and I think actually most species of Pliosaurus in kind of this grade up to that more advanced group that appears to be largely Cretaceous. It's one of these kind of Jurassic early thalassophians, which is, ocean murder is a pretty cool name. But yeah, there's really not a lot to say to that. It's part of a clade of things that have short necks and long faces.
Cool.
Why did the pliosaur swim into the bar?
Why the long
Chronosaurus is kind of a little more interesting to talk about in this regard because like it's towards the end. We can talk about like faunal overturn there. I guess the only other thing to say is like Edinburghosaurus is the third pliosaur of the game, and that it's the old boy, in which neck long, head short.
Right, and it shows the ancestral condition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is
right.
cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
You could do it the evolution of pliosaurs in your park, like primitive, ugly, derived.
Ooh, is that an idea to do a park that's arranged by phylogeny? I wonder if we were ever going to make a video about that.
I have prefab layouts for it too.
I think we're going to do it at some point.
At some point, yeah.
At some point.
When they keep releasing new packs, I'm like, oh, I got to reorganize. The marine. Oh, I actually have not revisited since they released the marine species pack, which so thoroughly fucks up the distribution of the base of my park. Because now there's a turtle, now there's a fish. I gotta reorganize everything. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Scott, do you want to talk about these gut contents real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't know anything about them.
So there's a really interesting paper that I read through in the research for this episode. Pliosaurus stomach contents from the Oxford Clay by D.M. Martill. And namely, this describes the a pretty interesting fossil and the stomach contents, most notably, hence the title, of a seemingly young Liopleurodon. They don't give a species name, so it's just Liopleurodon spa, but it's really interesting what they found in its stomach. Mainly, it's not what you would expect from something like this. A lot of pliosaurs have been traditionally depicted as macro predators, as being these guys that were essentially kind of doing what it seems like mosasaurs were doing later on, of just eating a lot of large things. Or at least some of the mosasaurs. I know there's freaks like globidens. But that's not what we found in the stomach contents of this guy. Namely, it is almost entirely squid tentacle hooks. It is very dominated by squid tentacle hooklets that are in the range of 2 to 10 millimeters. They're very small. And besides that, there's 4 gastroliths and a single indeterminate reptile tooth and the vertebrae of another, a vertebra of another indeterminate fish. But it is dominated by these squid little hooklets, which is really interesting. No, go on.
Are they squid or are they belemnoids?
They're specifically, they are they closely resemble, to quote directly from the paper, the hooklets from this new specimen resemble closely those of the toothed Belemnoteuthis antiquus.
It's cool. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah.
So they're almost, based on that, it's almost like a sperm whale analog.
They give 4 possibilities in the description. Number 1 is that this could be a weird individual. This one might have been living in
they call him the squid hunter.
they call him Squid Man.
He's at an Italian Christmas. The calamar. That these squids were abundant in the lower Oxford Clay, and it could just be that this individual they were more abundant here, so that's what these guys were eating here. Second, it could be that Liopleurodon was an opportunistic feeder and was just kind of getting anything, and that I believe that they do mention as well that cephalopod hooklets are acid resistant.
that it could be an unnatural sampling bias of just these are accumulating over a very long period of time, but they aren't actually that big of a portion of this guy's diet. Or number 3, that these guys were eating things that were eating squid themselves. And then then they essentially give the sperm whale analog that these guys might have been doing the interesting sperm whale thing of like focusing on like a kind of type of prey, but a wide variety of those types of prey, because we always think of pliosaurs as being macro predatory. They might have still been macro predators, but they might have been larger squid predators, or at least this guy, Liopleurodon, might have been a larger squid predator, because they mention that sperm whales will eat like a lot of different sizes of cephalopods.
Well, what's interesting about this to me, like the similarity that I see between these things and mosasaurs is the teeth look a lot like Plioplatycarpines. Plioplatycarpines have a very similar situation where the teeth get really long and straight and really fluted and striated, and we have pretty good evidence that they were specializing on squid and other soft-biting things. So I wonder, like basically the conclusion I would come to is like, okay, so these things are eating squid. Like they're eating big squid, that's why they're getting big. But like, that seems to be what, that tooth shape seems to be affiliated with soft-bodied prey items.
Which is right, because I mean that's interesting to me. Because if like gun to my head, and you're like, "Hey, which marine reptile is a squid specialist?" I'm going to say ichthyosaur.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's going to be the guys with the big eyes that are like going way, way, way down under the sea. And I'm almost curious that if like this is in the middle Jurassic, and if like is the composition of just the ocean like are there just massive shoals of maybe shallower water squid?
Maybe.
Yeah, and
like shore squids.
Yeah, because I'm thinking to the Plioplatycarpines that, along with their teeth, they also have big eyes usually, and they're the ones that we have better evidence of them diving and stuff. And like, it's why there's a really pretty piece of artwork by, I want to say it's Andrea Tuchin. I'm gonna double check, but it's Pleurodons, which is one of the Moroccan ones. Oh, sorry, yes, it is. It is him. But he made this very cute painting of a Pleurodons and a squid.
Oh, I see. That's pretty. Yeah. One interesting thing that kind of comes to mind is like, if this is a sperm whale analog, like they kind of have, like whales have a very derived body shape, but if you're turning a reptile into that equivalent, it's also got a gigantic rectangular head with long jaws.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you can really say that's convergent, but it is kind of interesting that, the big head shape is derived. We know this, right? The ancestral form is long neck, small head.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if maybe having this sort of skull shape is beneficial for feeding on cephalopods. Maybe it helps produce more suction. Maybe it just helps hold on to them. I don't know.
I'm curious about like...
There's as many ad hoc hypotheses as you could come up with, but it's
like
interesting.
Like, what are ichthyosaur gut contents like? And like, because they're short-snouted, rectangular, like crocs too. I don't know what any of them are eating.
Well, I can say that they do mention in here that some Metriorhynchids, including it's Metriorhynchus, is suggested to be a cephalopod feeder.
That's pretty cool. That I figured that out without any help, all by myself. I have an ad hoc hypothesis.
Had your Auk King.
Okay. Sperm whale, mass-wise, right? Probably bigger than a mosasaur, I've decided.
Probably.
Probably?
Yeah.
On average, probably, yeah.
Because the fossil record is well sampled, I can make this claim. In the Mesozoic, there were no super cool big squids. They were lame and stupid and lame. And the biggest one was like, I don't know, 10 feet long. So mosasaurs don't get any bigger. However, asteroid, Cenozoic happens. Squid get much bigger. Whales are like, we got to get bigger to eat them. That's why whales are big. And mosasaurs are like kind of only a little big. I've done science. And before anyone goes on the internet and corrects me that there are Mesozoic giant squids, no, they're not. Tusioteuthids are like weird octopoids, and they're like not as big.
That's the only thing that needs corrected in that.
Yes,
Everything else was right.
So I think sperm whales are so much more massive, probably because they have like blubber.
Nah, that can't be it. Wait, no, they need the blubber to stay down in the cold to hunt the bigger squids.
Right, that's what it is. It's all because of the squid. Their mass gets up to, the largest male sperm whale has gotten up to 57 tons.
Jesus.
That's a big boy.
That's a huge animal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you guys ever seen a sperm whale skeleton up close, like a big male?
Yes, there's one in the MCZ that's right directly in the path that I walk over to like Stephanie's lab and stuff. It is directly above you, and I don't even think it's a huge one.
Well, I've seen the AMNH did a whale exhibit, I think when I was in high school, and I remember going to that, and they had just mounted on the floor just a huge male sperm whale skeleton. They're far bigger than you expect.
Yeah, they're enormous.
Well, yeah.
Then we had at the it's at the museum. The Museum of Comparative Anatomy has, I think, 1 or 2 sperm whale jaws just kind of mounted upright, and they're like they're not even that big. I know that, but like it's still insane. And the AMNH diorama, like it's one of my favorite individual dioramas at the museum. Because it's cool. It's lit perfectly, but also like there's no glass, so it feels even spookier and even more real. But it's like just a fraction of the stupid thing, and it's still like ridiculous.
So I just want to know.
That's one of my favorite dioramas. That's so cool.
It's a wonderful diorama. I love it. I love that it has no glass because you wouldn't be able to see into it.
I have almost fallen into it.
Same here.
Same.
Most times while sober, once while hungover.
Mine's stone cold sober. I sat. I was like trying to and then forgot for a second.
I just want to note that a 63-ton short sperm whale, just because we were talking about like size estimation in the Tylo video, which is I guess the last one that came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a 59-foot long or 18-meter long individual. So that's like. I believe that's bigger than Bunker, right? Bunker is what, 14 meters?
Bunker's 14, yeah.
Yeah. So a 14-meter... I guess this, for a better comparison, a Baird's beaked whale is the second largest toothed whale. Mm-hmm. And beaked whales are also much larger than people think because they look kind of dolphin-y. Like, they're really big. But a large male will be up to 13 meters long, and that is a 15-ton animal. Jeez. So I think like our idea of roughly how big Bunker was does kind of fit with like these animals are less dense than whales, probably because they're less heavy per their size because they're not wrapped in blubber. But like,
look into their eyes; they look pretty dense to me.
I think it's a good example of the square cube law taking over. That like not increasing the length from 14 meters to 19 meters can take you from 15 tons to 63 tons because. You know what I mean? A linear measurement increase results in a huge increase in volume.
So does being built like a blimp.
Sperm whales are one of my favorite animals.
They're
Scott,
really
I like
cool.
that every time you go into work, you have like a Captain Ahab moment.
It's not directly walking to my lab, but it's like every time. Well. I kind of almost do because actually I pass a lot of whales when I'm walking around the MCZ because if I'm walking in one of the entrances, it has an orca skeleton right there, which orca skeletons are horrifying. Jesus, they have big teeth.
Awesome.
They're so cool. It's a orca skeleton and then a northern bottlenose whale. Right there, which are both gorgeous. And every single person who walks by that orca skeleton says it's a dinosaur. And then walking over to like Stephanie's lab and stuff, if I'm taking the inside route up on the 3rd floor, then I'm walking directly underneath the sperm whale and right by a stellar sea cow and stuff like that. And it's really, really neat. Alex, have you been to the MCZ?
I am going to insist that we rank this animal.
Yeah, let's rank this.
I've never been and I need to go.
Oh my God. Both of you come and visit. I'll host you.
This is... We should go to that concert together.
Yeah.
Party
rank.
Rank. Yeah, we can rank. Sorry, I was looking... I found the whale bones.
There is a book that came out recently about a guy who accidentally gets swallowed by a sperm whale.
Cyrus just read that. He said it was terrible.
I can only imagine it's terrible.
It was recommended for book club.
Really?
Well, not terrible. He said it was fine, and then the last couple chapters got really weird, and he fell off. But he was like, I only have an hour left, so I guess I'll finish it. It's called Whale Fall, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Ooh, also, speaking... Hold on. Sorry. Ignore me. Continue. I'll send this as a private message to James. Ignore him.
Thank you.
What color do we want?
Doesn't matter. They're all bad. Oh, man, I know I wanted to be nice to this, but I don't think I can.
No, I did too.
Not after the croc skull. Like that. Like the skull table really got me.
We're gonna do this one that I hate. I don't know why, but just to punish me. Shall we rank it?
Yes, let's. Amelia, please go ahead.
Yeah. It's a shame, especially compared to the other one that is so much better. I remember last time we did this, as in the lost footage that was 6 hours long, we almost ended the channel right there. That version, I think I gave it something pretty high, because, I don't know, I was feeling kinder. We didn't notice as many problems. As I've mentioned, I have a soft spot for this animal, as it was quite literally probably my favorite animal for a while because of the BBC thing. But this is such an affront to nature. C for crap. I don't but I appreciate the little character details. If this was in the movie, I would probably love it because I don't give a shit. The movie designs look stupid because I think it makes them fun. But it's not. It has no reason to look this way. And yet it does. Yeah. Yeah, see, I hate it, but I don't want it to die.
I can say nearly nothing positive about this. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm giving this an F. I think this is the creation of fiendish Dr. Wu. I think that I'll echo Amelia with there's no reason for it to look like this. I would not like it even if it had been in the movie. In fact, it would be part of my argument of why I think the movie is bad. The only reason I have a soft spot for Jurassic World Dominion is that we saw Jeff Goldblum while we all saw it, and we saw it to celebrate my PhD defense. I think without those memories, I would solely condemn it. Those memories do a lot of heavy lifting for the movie, but this is bad. To quote Hesh Rabkin from The Sopranos, this is not good. That's my favorite quote from The Sopranos. This is not good. Anyway, F. It's bad.
Damn.
I'm straight up. I'm with you, James. This thing's an F. I hate it. Liopleurodon is a really the only other thing that they actually did correct about this is that it's roughly the right size.
Yeah.
But good. I want to like it so desperately because, again, I think pliosaurs are really, really cool animals. And I think they're gorgeous when they're done correctly. And one of the things that I hate about this as well is that it animates really nicely. I like watching it move around. I just wish I was watching a different thing doing the moving around. I hate this. It's an F. Garbo. Disgusting.
Give it a big old F for this.
Alex.
I'm looking at it. This might be an upset in that I'm not going to give this an F. And I will not be the most negative person for a change. It's not good. But it does kind of evoke Crockett for me, which is doing something. And whereas the other ones, things like Deinonychus, are so ugly that I don't want to look at them. This is ugly in a way that I want to look at it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's an interesting ugly. And the fact that it's a swimming guy, I think, is doing a lot of work for me too, in that there are less swimming guys, so perhaps I'm less, we got a lot of bipedal guys for Deinonychus, and maybe that's why I feel so strongly about that. I'm going to say this is a D. It's not by any means good, but I don't think it's a fiendish Dr. Wu.
Yeah. So, likewise, this is an A for me. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I want to revisit and just go over kind of a couple things that we mentioned as we were discussing it, but we didn't give it much time. We've talked about head wrong, flippers bad. We gave a little bit of lip service, but didn't discuss much. The tail is too long, and the dorsal crocodilian scoots are almost certainly wrong. There's no evidence of any plesiosaurs with dorsal osteoderms. We would have found the bones. We've got good body outlines for some of them. They don't have these. I like the neckbeard. I hate the colors. I like the sound. I like the movements. This is, for me, also... Oh, I also hate the back of the jaw. It's weird looking, and there's these scales right here that kind of look like it's like a toy. Many of the bad designs in this game have a toy-like quality, I've found. Or many of the designs I don't like. I don't know if anything's objectively good or bad, really. I'm not a philosopher. But no, like Alex, this doesn't break into fiendish Dr. Wu territory for me, because while this is ugly and terrifically inaccurate in almost every way, it's a good character design, if nothing else. It's fun. It's kind of funky. He looks mean and haggard. It's a D for me. Because I reserve fiendish Dr. Wu for things that I find personally offensive in their badness, and right now that's only Deinonychus and Sinoceratops. There might be more, but I don't remember any. It's a D for me.
You know what I just had a thought of? This guy reminds me of those weird, mosasaur or Metriorhynchid antagonists in one of the Ice Age movies.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Wait, aren't those literally supposed to be pliosaurs?
No, I don't know. They're so weird. I don't know what they're supposed to. One of them, I think was
the purple one is very much a Metriorhynchid. It's not terrible for a Metriorhynchid, all things considered. It doesn't have rear legs, but otherwise it looks fine. And also, Metriorhynchid rear legs are basically nothing anyway. I don't think it does. No. Oh. So it could be a Metriorhynchid, it could be an ichthyosaur, but I've always read it as Metriorhynchid. The other one is just kind of vague plesiosaur looking blob.
Anyways, 2 Ds, a C, and 2 Fs makes it a D?
I guess so.
I think a C, 2 Ds, 2 Fs.
2 Fs.
Can we get Adamolas on the line?
Adamolas.
I don't remember.
Adamolas. You're our only hope. What, Alex?
I looked it up.
Which one?
I looked up both of them.
Yeah?
So, Cretaceous, whichever one Cretaceous is an ichthyosaur.
Okay.
He's got a little hind flipper, but 4 legs.
And then the other one is a pliosaur. Neither of these are supposed to be marine crocodiles, and I can't believe it. The slender purple one with the spine on its back is supposed to be an ichthyosaur. I'm losing my mind.
So
I don't give it. That one, talk about cool characters design. I love that one.
And the big fat one.
The fat one sucks.
A pliosaur. I'm going to stop looking at this. It's making me mad.
How does Adamolas do the stats for this? Do the math?
Let me see.
Well,
I actually don't know his algorithm.
Wouldn't it just be a D?
It's 2 Ds.
I'm saying, hypothetically, if I had given it a D, would it just be a D?
Yeah.
So there's no way that my C pulls it up into C, so it's just a D.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to do math for this.
No, I think you're right. I think it's just a D.
Just do the median, right?
All right. Hey.
Yeah, no, F is not weighted more.
I think it might be because I'm putting it in as 0 and trying to get the average instead of as 1.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it is.
But yeah, I think it's a D.
So with that, Liopleurodon gets put spared Tartarus to go firmly into
but only just
firmly into D tier, along with Camarasaurus, the Jurassic World Pteranodon, the Frontier Dreadnoughtus, and Archaeornithomimus.
That feels right.
That does kind of feel all right to me. Like, I would have loved it down there in F, but this is fine.
Is it
All
time
right.
to spin?
spin
That wheel.
Wheel. All right.
round and round and round it goes. Where will it land?
Oh.
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 Dryosaurus.
It had to be this one eventually.
It did.
Let's talk about Dryosaurus.
Yeah! Yay!
Yay!
All our ornithischian
We
fans
lo-
are going to go nuts.
Yes.
You heard it here first. Foist.
You heard
That
it
was
here,
good.
Faust.
You did hear it here, Faust. Well,
Yes.
everybody, that's it for this episode on Chronosaurus. Or whoever this was. This was
Liopleurodon,
Liopleurodon? Right, never mind.
It was Chronosaurus.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm tired. What I'm going to say now, it may be controversial,
Oh.
but thank you to our patrons.
Yes.
I
not
think
controversial
that
at all.
you are all wonderful, wonderful people, and we appreciate the support you give our channel so very much. All of our patrons get their names in the credits of every video, which we're going to start right now, rolling on screen. And our highest patrons are also getting their contractual verbal shout out at the end of the video. And as of this recording, we really want to thank Benjamin Seepser, nickname 3110, Philip Fico, AK92, Christopher Bellis Jones, Adam Olos, Dan O'Kyrus, King Zashu, Laxfishin, Max Ironpaw, Original Username, Pythonic, Swamp Ape Science, and Wheat for their incredibly generous support of the Skeleton Crew. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.
And thank you to all of our patrons. Again, we're all working paleontologists. We think that's part of what makes this channel special, is that this is not our whole job. We are working in paleontology all the time. This is the community we live in and thrive in. And, that's a wonderful part of what we do. But it also means that running this channel and being content creators on the side as well is really difficult and time consuming. And the support you guys give us there really helps us justify taking the time out of our busy schedules that we need to make these videos and to make them as good as they can be for all of you. So thank you all very much. I will reiterate my exhortation from the beginning of the video. If you have not already, please leave a comment, maybe multiple comments. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the Skeleton Crew if you haven't already, and if you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It really helps us a lot. Thank you so much. Oh, one note. I think this is maybe worth mentioning. Just one note. Our maximum commented video has like 390 comments on it as of right now.
Jesus.
It would be really cool if we got 400 on one video. Maybe this one. Maybe the video on Dryosaurus next week if it turns out to be really controversial or exciting. But just consider it a challenge. Let's see what we can get.
Remember, you can annoy me by posting the same comment over and over again. If that's something that interests you, do it until we get to 400 comments. I'll be annoyed.
Yes, he will. You could also tell him that you don't like the works of H.P. Lovecraft very much.
Well, no. I mean,
You can't tell him that.
You wouldn't tell lies.
you can't tell me that. But also, I can understand. Now,
Yes.
if James was, more up to weird fiction authors, he might know who you could actually say is bad. That would upset me, but he doesn't.
Sorry. Anyway, that's it for this video. We'll see you next
Bye-bye.
week when we talk about a little ornithopod.
Bye.
See y'all.
Bye.
Have a beautiful time.